G'day sports fans, welcome back. Marty Does Rona number 54. Today's my first flight back after a little bit of stand down due to this coronavirus. Making this video to mainly involve the majority of the QF pilots that are still stood down. So I hope you can vicariously involve yourself in this flight and try to keep yourselves ahead in the game. Also, if you're non-Qantas, you're most welcome. I hope you get something out of it. Today I'm based in Perth, and today I'm taking off from Perth. I'm a 737 driver going up to the Pilbara. The Pilbara is a large area up in northwest Australia, and I'm going in specifically in the Pilbara to do Roy Hill Mine, which is Jimbata Airport, Gina Reinhardt's mine. And I'm taking the fly-in fly-out workers who work at her mine site, taking the employees to the mine. That's our bread and butter in the West. We love it. We love going to the Pilbara. But as always, every day's a school day.
Hi, I'm Marty. I flew these with these. I fly these with them. Got a wife, kids, play golf, band, happy life, and then Corona. It's a drag, but you're not alone. Have a laugh with me on...
She's the night before I go to Jimbata, and just in the back of my mind I'm already thinking weather, so I've just checked out the weather forecast for both Perth and Newman. You can't get a TAF for Jimbata at this point. Also this great website called Earth Knoll, where the end of that T is pretty much the centre of the Pilbara, so you can see it's quite an easterly flow. That helps me all start to think about which runway I'm going to be using. I'm not premeditating it, but it's certainly giving me a clue in the right direction. I think the dog's all over it.
Well, good morning YouTube. 4:45 in the morning. I'm off to the airport. I normally set the alarm roughly about an hour before sign on. That way I don't have to rush. Shaved the night before. I actually had a shower this morning just to feel fresh. Haven't had my coffee though, so I won't feel human till that occurs. First thing, Jimbata, we normally get a flight plan there and a flight plan back, which helps us because there is quite often no coverage for our iPads up there to receive new flight plans and new weathers, so they normally bring them out on a printed roll once we land, but we always have the second flight plan ready to go so that we can start thinking about tankering fuel up there, because clearly up in the Pilbara, West Australia, fuel's quite expensive, so we tend to tanker there and back if we can. Today I think we've got roughly about 120 people, so we could definitely tanker there and back. That's the first operational thing I start thinking about, is what's the weather and how many people have we got, and both those things head me down the route of thinking about how much gas I'm taking up. So I'm not only considering the weather up there, I'm also considering what the weather will be back in Perth. But today we don't have a second flight plan, and I was a bit confused by that until my 4 o'clock brain realised that we're going to be sitting there on the ground for about 8 hours. So that's why we haven't got the second flight plan. Normally they can only roster us up to 12 hours. We can extend through to 14 operationally once we're at work if we're feeling rested, but with a day rest, as we're going to get up in the mine, they'll give us a little donga, a little bedroom to sleep in while we're up there. You can extend that through to 16. So today's duty ends up being around about 14 hours, I think, but only about 3 hours of flying. The next operational thing I'd start thinking about is who I'm flying with. I'm flying with a bloke today, Luke, and the reason I think about who I'm flying with is then I'm thinking about, well, who's flying the first leg, and if there's nothing in it, if there's no line call, if the weather's fine and the airfield's fine and we're both current and we're both been on type for more than a couple of months, I'll always actually allow the first officer to decide which leg he'd like to fly or she'd like to fly, and that's part of me. I'm very comfortable with giving the guys I fly with a fair bit of rope, because when I was a junior FO on the 7.3, I was given a lot of rope by the old bowls in Brisbane, and I think it's the way you you develop the guys who are going to be sitting in my seat very shortly. Obviously, if there's something that I feel that I should be doing the landing, then I'll decide to do that, but that's very, very rare. For example, Jimbata today, 2,500 feet long, sorry, 2,500 meters long, so absolutely fine for performance for the 7.3, and 1,500 foot elevation, about 1,400 foot elevation, and the weather there tends to be fine, no sort of geographic turbulence or anything, so no, I tend to let them choose. Whoever's the most current will be the one today. If Luke's been flying, then he's doing the trip up, and then I'll do the trip back to Perth, but we'll see. And then of course I'm starting to think NOTAMs. No, I haven't read the NOTAMs or INTAMs yet. There's notices to the pilots for what's important for the operation for the day. I'll wait till I get to the car park, and that's why I leave a little bit early. I want to sit there for 10-15 minutes and go through the NOTAMs. As I said in a previous video, mate, the NOTAMs, the devil is in the detail. You'll sift through 200 or 300 notices, and there'll be one in there that's important. And that's what I want to do, is highlight that one, so that when I can meet Luke in the planning room, I'm not wading through a lot of rubbish. I'm basically just discussing the important stuff that I found with him, and his younger, keener set of eyes can maybe pick up something that I haven't seen. Going up to the Pilbara, I've been doing that now for 10 years in the West Australian base, right through the height of the mining boom, and now it's backed off a little bit, obviously due to COVID, but it is such a pleasure. In fact, it's probably the highlight of my career in Qantas, is the flying that I've been doing up to the Pilbara. You leave Perth crack of dawn, you get up there at dawn in the Pilbara. Normally most of the flights are only about an hour and a half. It's just under 2 hours to get all the way to Port Hedland, and so today about an hour and a half to get to Jimbata. You're normally descending as the dawn's just coming up, you know, first light of the day, and once you head below controlled airspace, you are your own master. As long as you transmit what you're doing below bottom level of controlled airspace, choose your own adventure. And that sounds very full of threats, but it's the complete opposite. It actually unloads you massively. You get very good at talking in common sense and practical ways to other aircraft with separation, and common sense is the real key when you're up there. Guys get really wrapped around the axle. The guys that come unstuck outside controlled airspace in airline operations that I see get very wrapped around the axle in procedure and try to cross every T and dot every I to make it the perfect flight in the Pilbara, whereas the guys, and that doesn't work, because quite often the helicopter that's doing a survey flight, or the Lighty that's a jackaroo going from station to station, doesn't operate to those same standards, but you've got to mesh in with him. So practicality is the word of the day, common sense the word of the day. So when I'm heading up to the Pilbara and flying outside controlled airspace, I'm just thinking big picture, and I'm thinking practicality, common sense. Another aspect of going to the Pilbara is that none of the ports other than Karratha have a dedicated engineer sitting there. So that opens up an entire world of considerations for you operating a jet up and back successfully. Amazingly, the little Maggot, the 737, is such a reliable aircraft. It is so resilient, so robust, that even if you do come across the odd minor malfunction with the aircraft, you normally can dispatch from a port up in the Pilbara back to Perth. That involves ringing up the maintenance watch facility that Qantas has with engineers that you can ring, and then a lot of the problems that are listed in our minimum equipment list, which is our maintenance directive for the aircraft operationally, you can ring them and the pilots are able to dispatch an aircraft without an engineer looking at a lot of the problems. Obviously the serious ones, no, we're grounded and we'll get an engineer, but the big one for today, we've got an 8-hour sit on the ground, and we're going to lock that aircraft up, and the big consideration there is to make sure you don't leave the electrics on and running the battery down, because if you come back to a dead ship, there's not many Hollera Marshalls up in the middle of the Pilbara. And the mine itself is a real eye-opener to see. It's a camp that has thousands of rooms up there. They had to provide thousands of rooms while they built the camp. So normally nowadays the camp's only about a third occupied with the people that just run the mine on a daily basis. But it's amazing to see. It's like going to a RAF base, a bear base up in the like Learmont or something. They've got catering facilities, gym facilities. They've got recreation rooms and pools. It's just amazing. It's like a little campus for all the fly-in, fly-out workers who clearly spend a fair bit of time up there. And clearly the other major thing I'm thinking about as I drive to the airport for my first flight after 60 days is that currency. Now, I've been to the simulator, got revalidated there. That was fantastic for raising my level of confidence and proficiency on the jet. But I haven't been to Gimbarta or the Pilbara in 60 plus days. So just operationally, I know that that's probably the biggest threat today. And I'll talk to Luke about that, discuss it with him, but slow and steady wins the race as always. Now it's 4:57. I'm hoping for a Donga Park. Goals. Morning I'm going to have to get my temperature tested, and then I get a little sticker that I can put on my ID. And the reason being is all the mines are testing for high temperature to try and avoid getting COVID-19 up in the camps. One of the things you've gotten very used to, all of us have gotten used to being in the West and working the fly in, fly out, is you can come to the airport at 4 in the morning and it's packed with people in yellow and orange shirts. Hello, 5 in the morning.
How are you, sir?
Lovely. I've already said g'day to about 4 members of the West Australian cabin crew that I haven't seen for 2 months. It's been great. Spocked out my bay 15, the best bay in Perth, pole position.
Flight planning, met Luke, my first officer. We've flown before and he checked a line just about 3 weeks before COVID-19 really hit. Good for him. And we made a fuel decision, then off for our first morning coffee.
Sue, Gina and YN. Fueler started his job. Always write it on the hand. 12.4 is the fuel decision that Luke and I came up with.
Pre-flight is inevitably full of distractions. We pressurised the hydraulics due to a strong easterly pushing the flight controls. Catering had short changes on water and also the return meal, so they needed organising. We changed runway due to wind shear being on the ATIS, the Sigmet. The wastewater was 3/15 full, needed to get engineering's advice whether that was okay for the return. Finally, my Bose headset gave up the ghost. Needed to go back to the normal headset. On the departure, 210 speed restriction came into play off that runway, and in the climb, wind change needed the belts in the seatbelt PA. Then had a gorgeous morning breakfast with a view, and then got myself organised for the Gimbarta CTAF. I draw out this graph which helps you to be organised going into a CTAF. Nick Copeland, great captain, showed me this one. So, for example, if Gimbarta traffic comes up, Gimbarta traffic flying Doctor 222 at PC12, right crosswind, intercepting the 192 bearing on climb, flight levels Gimbarta. This allows you to do something with that information. It's as simple as you graph it and you work out whether your inbound and his outbound are going to conflict, and then you come up with a plan to do something about it. I've found it a very effective way of organising yourself when entering and departing CTAFs. Have a look at it, give it a go. Our CSM is lovely Kim. He's been spending some time in the COVID stand down as being a chef up in one of the mines himself. It never ceases to amaze me the skills that our people have. As soon as we can, we get the AWIS, the current wind, QNH and temperature for the field, and that's the key getting up here in the Pilbara with all the mines in and out traffic is to be organised, get ahead of the game. If you look at this graph here, you can see just how complicated it gets, and you want to be ahead of the game. Operating into the Pilbara OCTA, the airspace is very close with the mines, very close together. It can be very rewarding, but it is also very fluid, and you want to be on your A game. You need to be organised, otherwise things snowball really quickly. So you get the destination weather early, you load the approach, you brief the approach, you get the descent clearance early and any traffic for your descent. Your radios need to be pre-planned. You need VHF 1 and VHF 2. The management of them are very important. You listen out in the CTAF early, and all of this on top of your normal descent considerations. Once you go outside controlled airspace, you are the master of your own destiny, and things like altimetry, weather avoidance and traffic are all on you. You do not have the safety net of air traffic control anymore. You need to be familiar with all the destinations up there, so when you're listening out, you know whether they're significant or not. As always, being practical is the main guide here, and if you need to make a change, be positive and make it early.
You think you know what's right. You never tried to see my side. You seem so innocent. Telling me you're here to help. I will be running. You're rattling my cage. I try so hard to tame your rage. No, I won't step aside. Gritting teeth, we say goodbye. I won't keep running. I will be running. 'Cause I'm not the man you used to.
He's back at it, happy as a pig in mud.
I'll jump aboard, I'll rock your boat, but you won't trade me. Down the river, down the river. You're picking all these fights with no one game to pull you aside. Are you a cry for help? Cause I can't take this holding cell. You will be running. You will be running. Cause I'm not the man you used to know. You won't trade me. Down the river, I'll jump aboard, I'll rock your boat, but you.
Yeah, so this is my room for the day. It's one of the mining dongers. They're small, but they're really well organised. Little fridge, little desk, little place you can put your clothes. I've got a bed, and the internet, some air conditioning, little shower area, and a little bathroom area. Gold.
You never tried to see my side. You seem so innocent.
Go! Well, that was a long day, but it's over, and geez, it was good to be back at work. The second leg was pretty interesting. Got back to the aircraft, cranked it up, and what do you know, on the flight plan, they'd bunged on an op risk for severe turbulence, and then even on the descent, just prior to descent, we got another message telling us it was going to be 50 knots of wind at 1,500 feet. So had to earn my pay today. Enjoyed it. So that's the end of a pretty long day, 14 hours, 2 crew. I really enjoyed my first day back at work, and since so many of you are not at work, I'll continue to put these out, and if I'm at work, I hope in some way you can be at work and involved in the operation. Keep strong out there, guys. We are not alone. You are not alone. Have a great day.
Down the river, 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 down the river. 'Cause I'm not who you used to know. You won't trade me down the river.
Yeah, that'll do.